This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. So, okay, we're going to talk about the situation we're in, the hole we're in, and then I want to cover some pieces of information, some old, some new, but the reality is that I think it all points to where we're going, and that really, to me, is something that I want to really make sure that I'm constantly aware of no matter what I'm doing or the material that I'm looking at. So let's go ahead and get started. So right now, the hole that we're in is $27 trillion deep. I touched on this a little bit in this morning's video and then talked about oil and the potential of XRP becoming the settlement for the petrodollar and replacing the petrodollar in that regard. That means, in my eyes, that the U.S. could remain as a unit of account and certainly a sovereign currency, but alleviate the stress of the global reserve status by using a medium of exchange and a store of value like XRP to begin to put in place as an exchange rate peg between all other currencies of the world for oil and all other fiat. So, and obviously with the announcement that things can be tokenized as far as securities go, we can start to see the derivatives market and everything like that converted over to tokenization quite quickly, I might add. And then you could actually start participating in a new system, and you know the lot of it. So, but the reality is today we just crossed $27 trillion, and that's remarkable. I mean, that is like so terrible, it's not even funny. Now, to that point, and shout out to Einstein Squared, MC Squared, for these posts here. I didn't want to pull up the actual debt clock today, but, you know, we covered with Cryptopolis and I covered here on the show, on Friday's shows, over a year ago, I believe it was, well, at least certainly 6 months ago or so, when the U.S. national assets and the U.S. unfunded liabilities, which you see here. So this is the total U.S. assets. Let me bring it up for you really quickly here. 1 second here. So this is the unfunded liabilities that we got to pay for. This is debt, 154 trillion, that number is. There you go, million, billion, trillion, 154 trillion in U.S. unfunded liabilities. Now, going a little further back here, one of these has the total national assets at 124. If you watch this clock, you will see that the assets, the good assets, that number is going down, and the debt number is actually going up for unfunded liabilities. Pretty frightening, you know, to see that running like that and know that we're absolutely insolvent, basically. Now, people will say and take issue with us being insolvent because the U.S. and the Fed, they can always print money, so there's really no such thing as insolvent. But I remind people that there's an imaginary line in the sand, and that imaginary line in the sand is confidence. Now, you won't know when you cross it or where that line exactly is, but I should say, you will know once it's crossed. And I believe that there is a large part of why XRP was created and works so well and continues to work so well within the system, within regulatory standards, governments, financial institutions, banks. So, you know, there's a reason, I believe, for XRP's approach and Ripple's approach to implementing the asset XRP because of this great fact. And this fact, unfortunately, stems across the globe. This is not just a problem here in the United States. This is a global issue. So, okay, let's keep this moving because we build on this from DJ Peter Vass, $2.7 trillion by 2023 in global payments using DLT, distributed ledger technology. Pretty remarkable. I do want to remind everybody that, you know, we heard from David Rutter, from CEO of R3, who talked about the idea that all Italian banks by the end of this year will be on Corda. Now, that is for reconciliation with inside the bank, not for payment settlement. However, I do want to remind people, if all Italian banks are going to be on Corda platform, the Corda settler for that platform uses the digital asset XRP for settlement. Now, let me give an analogy. if you don't think that they're going to use XRP for settlement, I think that's just like thinking if you were to go to GoDaddy to build a website and then choose to not use their payment platform that they offer for processing payments. Now, you may choose another payment processing, and some people do, in fact. But the large majority of people that go to GoDaddy and build a website end up using the payment settlement option that they have. Does that help? It's interesting, how many people in this space can be very robotic about what they understand in this space. Pretty remarkable, I got to tell you. So that to me is pretty incredible. So when you think about just all of Italy being on Quarter platform, all of Italy's banks being on Quarter platform, knowing that eventually that next leap, that next last mile step is to use the Quarter settler for reconciliation or settlement of payments at some point instead of just interbank reconciliation. To me, it's the next logical step. And if they weren't going to use the full suite of products, I don't believe they would even be working with R3 to begin with. Plenty of other companies out here that you could use that aren't ultimately offering XRP for settlement for the full benefit of what the host of those products offer. So 2.7 trillion by 2023 in global payments using DLT, that to me is a market. That is a market right there. And to build on that notion, looky here. Ethereum base layer scalability still years away, says Vitalik Buterin. Well, this speaks to two big things that we've had here recently. One, the announcement of the Flare network, which is to build a two-way bridge from Ethereum to XRP. And then the idea that Ripple just won a patent that allows them to use smart contracts like from Codius and to be able to handle smart contracts, period, and settle commodities and like oil, gold contracts, things of that nature, or derivatives in general. So, to me, there is two shots going across the bow here for Ethereum as a whole while they are dealing with these difficult scaling options that are happening. And, shout out to Vitalik for being, honest and forthright in saying, we're still years away from getting this thing where it needs to be. Listen, they're proof of work right now. They plan on moving to proof of stake. The more they stake the token, right? The more they stake the Ethereum token to participate in the staking rewards, the higher the transaction fees get because the price of the token goes up because of the scarcity of locking it up. Now, that's an issue right there at its core. And now you have the Ethereum people who are staking the token are really only interested in the rewards, right? So it kind of becomes this siloed island of just Ethereum stakeholders, right? And if you think about what Flare, if I understand at least what little bit I understand of the Flare network to this point, Flare is basically set up to cut the ability to use the Ethereum railroad tracks without having to sit in the railroad car of Ethereum and pay the gas fees by way of using the smart token or Spark token. So, or at least participating in the network with it. So we're going to try to find out a lot more about that, by the way. But that to me there is a lot, I would say, in front of Ethereum right now. And I don't mind saying that there's a lot of companies out here that intend to work with Ethereum smart contracts. And it'll be interesting to see how they navigate these hurdles together, or if they abandon ship and go to the XRP ledger and get the benefit of using something like Codius. Will it be beneficial for them to remain on that network, or will they go ahead and move over to something new? We'll have to see, but there are hurdles in the way when it comes to all of the money. And the reason I'm talking about payments, the reason I'm talking about smart contracts is because at the end of the day, that's what all of this is about. It is about all of the money in some shape, way, or form or another. And what we see here, honestly, with the patent being won by Ripple to handle smart contracts, I see another another huge hurdle for Ethereum with all the things that they're facing within their own scalability issues to go along with that, which are outside of the network, which are costs, fees, effectiveness, scalability issues, so it is a thing. Calvin Ayre, not to put too fine a point on it, says ETH is just so stupid. I mean, I didn't want to go that deep on it, but Calvin didn't mind, so shout out to Calvin. But at any rate, we move forward. Now, here's another big picture point right here. Shout out to Joan Eagle Bronson for this one. Ripple seeks to fill key vacancy, which DLT giant will heavily depend on. And this to me is pretty remarkable because take a look at this. In search of senior manager of treasury, the owner of all cryptocurrency and traditional treasury operations. San Francisco-based blockchain-based Decacorn Ripple has published another vacancy seeking the owner of cryptocurrency and traditional treasury operations. Things just keep getting bigger. They are expanding. They are moving in this direction. You have seen over the last, just the last 2 or 3 weeks, constant job openings for Ripple to bring in and expand the company or replace and bring someone else in for a role that was already there. And the truth of this is to me, what I see is a growth period of it's growth and posturing. I see Ripple, making sure that the XRP ledger has an independent nonprofit foundation set up so the XRP ledger can go off on its own and fly with its own wings, right? I see Ripple, the blockchain company, moving forward and expanding its operations and increasing and strengthening their roles that they already have with all of these different positions because they are preparing for the large implementation of what I believe is going to be RippleNet. And I believe RippleNet eventually some point may get acquired by Swift or become a part of Swift as a new digital arm for settlement. So the list of duties for the aforementioned position includes managing relationships existing and new banks and non-traditional financial banks. That includes supporting treasury needs for operations inside the company and for supporting the growth of the network RippleNet. Look, when I look at these things, I see the Flare network, the Codius, the patents come out for Ripple for smart contracts. I see everything that's happening here for RippleNet, knowing that Ripple themselves are on the standards body committee for ISO 2022, right? That which is the de facto modern payments language or settlement or process protocols that's being used for settlement. To me, what I really see is a huge takedown. I see a huge takedown happening, and it's really kind of a part of these maturation of the space in general. If the tech doesn't prove out, it won't be there. And that's one of the things about having legislation too early if it's too confining or too defined. Because the reality is that if you don't let the markets run a little bit and let the free market prove to you what should make it and what should fall to the floor, you're really going to have a problem. And I think in my mind, and of course the eternal optimist here, I believe in my mind that is why we have seen the United States wait until the last minute to begin to reveal legislation, moving recently here to move 3 bills based around cryptocurrency and blockchain through the House, now to the Senate. And I believe that so they could see up until now the most information they could to make the best framework to really move forward without hindering the innovation of this space. No doubt about it. Now, moving forward here, this is an old clip from Real XRP Boy who puts up some great stuff, and shout out to him. And here's the thing. This is at least a year or two, maybe a little longer old of Brad Garlinghouse. They only had 100 partnerships at the time. I want to bring this in at 30 seconds. And let me see if I have this. Yeah, I'll start this right here.
Until that clarity is there.
Let me get it. So the 30 seconds here. Here we go. Let's listen to what's said here, because what's funny is this was said so long ago by Brad Garlinghouse, but then I am getting ready to play a clip from Brian Brooks from just this week. Let's listen.
Circling around, I mean, there are indications that perhaps your biggest rival, Swift, will be joining you. Could you shed some light?
Well, look, SWIFT is owned by the banks, and we are here to help the banks. We feel like blockchain technologies are a massive step function forward in terms of how correspondent banking has historically worked.
Boom. He says a huge step forward at how banking works. That's what cryptocurrencies are to him. Listen to that really quickly. That was a lot right there. Listen.
Shed some light.
Well, look, SWIFT is owned by the banks, and we are here to help the banks. We feel like blockchain technologies are a massive step function forward in terms of how correspondent banking has historically worked.
Wow. A huge step function forward with blockchain technology for how banking works. Well, you know what's interesting? Let's listen to this last little bit of information here by Brian Brooks here. Response. Now let's go right to the last thing here where I want to get down to it, and this is at 3744 here. And what's nice about this is that Brian Brooks makes no bones about it of exactly how he sees the evolution of this space as an advancement in banking activity. And let's just hear him say it. Check it out.
Having said all of that, when we look at the world of payments, what I've sort of said is historically we think of banks as providing three core functions: deposit taking, payments, and lending. We've seen in the last 10 years that it might be more profitable to offer some of those services on an unbundled basis. This is why, we have multiple $100 billion companies that are just payments companies. That business that they're doing was exclusively done inside of banks 15 years ago. Nobody but banks did that business. And now suddenly an enormous amount of the activities moved outside of banks. So that's kind of a big deal. Crypto is just the newest, at least certain aspects of crypto, the newest evolution of that trend. Here's a way of offering that service, as Jay says, way more efficiently. But let's not kid ourselves. It's still a banking service. That's what the...
Whoa, it's still a banking service. Now, what Brad Garlinghouse said is essentially the same exact thing. And that was at least a year or more ago, probably 2-3 years ago, because he only had 100 partnerships. Listen to the rest of this comment here.
The technologies that banks use today that SWIFT developed decades ago really hasn't evolved and kind of kept up with the market. And so we feel like we're here to help the banks. SWIFT is owned by the banks. There have been opportunities where maybe there's partnership opportunities.
There's partnership opportunities there. He keeps reiterating that we're here to help SWIFT. We're here to help the banks, and there's partnership opportunities. When you see something like RippleNet developed, knowing that Marcus Treacher and Marjan Delatine both came from SWIFT, and by the way, Marcus Treacher was the head of HSBC, and I think it was probably 10 or 11,000 employees he was the head of there at his time there. So Marcus Treacher certainly knows how to get something big done. Okay. Now, the other thing about this is that, when you think about the fact that SWIFT is privately owned by the banks, right? And you're going to hear what Brad says about this in this video. So let's listen. SWIFT is privately owned by the biggest banks of the world. Listen to what he says at the end.
We haven't been able to bring those to fruition, but we're going to keep focusing on solving the customer problem. SWIFT said not that long ago they didn't see blockchain as a solution to correspondent banking. We've got well over 100 of their customers saying that they disagree.
Powerful statement. And I just want to reiterate right there that confidence that Brad has right there is he knows what the power of the tech can do, just like Jay Clayton knows now when he testified in the congressional hearing, says we have to embrace it, because if not, it will innovate around you. And that's a powerful statement from the head of the SEC. But the real deal here is that he understands business. He understands business in a great way, because he knows is that if he continues to build and grow and get stronger, the tech has already proven itself that it is absolutely far and away above anything that's available out here. Then the reality is it comes down to a very simple thing: business pressure. When you put incentive on the other competitor across the street, that no matter how big that they are, they can't just get out there and do what they've done because Swift is not an innovator. This is why they joined forces with R3 so they could get the Swift GPI connected to that. Well, it's faster instant messaging. It's not faster instant settlement. If they want faster instant settlement, they have to use the quarter settler with XRP to settle off of the R3 platforms, or they have to go directly and see someone like RippleNet. And that's why ultimately I believe if the tech proves out, just like it should for legislation and defining the proper framework for that going forward, I think the same thing happens in business. You launch a tech, you let the tech prove itself out, and if you've built the right thing, then RippleNet will absolutely put enough pressure on the market. Because listen, you don't have to get 100% of the market capture. That's not what you have to do. You just need to capture 10%, 20%, somewhere in that area to let them know the writing is on the wall, and they will step in and absolutely make a liquidity event happen and bring that and tuck it in up underneath of what Swift does. Potentially, but that's my thought on the matter, and that's my thoughts on the day. So that's going to do it for me. It's a takedown, ladies and gentlemen, and it's starting to happen in more ways than one. You're really starting to see the long game unfold here for Ripple and XRP, I believe, because you see the mountains that are in front of the scalability issues for Ethereum. You see the mountain that's in front of them because the Flare network coming out, building a two-way bridge really around a lot of the stakeholding that goes on the Ethereum network with the gas fees. And then you see Codius getting the patent, winning the patent there for Codius and smart contracts directly from Ripple and XRP. So to me, the plot thickens, and the longer this thing goes, the more I see Ripple and XRP rising to the surface to meet the occasion. All right, guys, hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and share with somebody you know. I'll catch all of you on the next one.